Hi, I'm Alex Paulton. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today we're going to compare the Longines Zulu, Spirit Zulu, and the Maurice Lacroix Aikon GMT. Two very nice watches in roughly the same price category, but one of them, in my opinion, is far superior to the other. Let's turn the camera around and figure out which one of those it is. But before I do, please remember to subscribe. It really helps the channel, or at least leave a like. So here are the Maurice Lacroix GMT and the Longines Spirit Zulu Time GMT. Or I should say Zulu. They don't say Zulu Time. They just call it the Zulu. The two watches are roughly the same amount of money. This one retailed originally for around 27, and this one currently retails for around 3. Used, this one's floating around 2. This one hasn't settled down yet because it's still relatively new. It was just released. Now, the two watches do have a lot of similarities, but they differ greatly. They're both metal bracelet GMT outer bezel sports watches with quick release bracelets, but pretty much nothing else about these two watches is the same. For example, let's start with the Maurice Lacroix. The Maurice Lacroix is a nice piece, and it does have a good presentation. I just did a video on this watch specifically, and it's very legible. It does work well. It is a good piece, nice and chunky, but I do have one ding, and that's because it has a diver bezel, which I think is a little lame for a watch that costs a couple $1,000 and new. It was almost $3. It should have a bidirectional bezel. I mean, come on, even the new Sony GMT, not Sony, even the new Seiko GMT has a bidirectional bezel. It has a friction bidirectional bezel, so they even managed to avoid any issues with Seiko misalignment on the bezel, because with no detents, there's nothing to lock in. So not only is it a bidirectional, but it's smooth in both directions. Whereas the Aikon is a unidirectional bezel. So that's kind of a ding. And I mean, it's not a bad bezel. Doesn't feel all that solid either, I must admit. And it doesn't quite line up, but that's okay, right? So it's not a bad piece. But then if you compare it in that sense to the Longines, right? Let's look closely at the Longines. I think the dial on the Longines pops more also. I mean, that's a minor thing. I do believe that the presentation of the Longines is more polished. The way that the slight dome on the sapphire crystal blends into the case and the case shape. I mean, it's a very traditional case shape, but they really managed to do something nice with it. Some people don't like the stars at the bottom of the face. I like it. It gives it a little bit of a distinction. And unfortunately, it does have a roughly similar appearance to the Tag Heuer Ottavia GMT. But other than that, it's a really nice piece. And this one has a bidirectional. I currently have it set for New York time because my office GMTs I set for I already have preset for 2 time zones. This one's set for New York time on the GMT hand straight up, and on the travel GMTs, which this is, since I leave both hands on the same time, then I just turn the outer bezel to reflect the second time zone for New York City, right? And this is a true travel GMT. You pull it out to the first, and the hour hand goes in both directions. All right. And to get to the date, of course, you have to spin the hour hand. But since you're spinning the hour hand and not the minute hand, it actually goes quite rapidly. The Maurice Lacroix is a travel GMT. I mean, is a what they call an office GMT. The GMT hand is independently settable, and then they have the quick set date in the other direction. So that also would be a significant determinant of which of the two watches you would prefer. Me personally, I think a travel GMT is far more functional, like the Longines, and frankly, the Seiko is an office GMT and has a very similar presentation to the Maurice Lacroix, but this is a $500 watch. So compared to the two, the Longines comes across as a very, very clear winner. It's a true travel GMT. Its bezel is bidirectional. I think it has a more integrated look. The Maurice Lacroix does look like they took the one of the other models and just slapped GMT functionality on it, whereas this is part of a line and looks very much like the three-hander, but the way the bezel and the face and all work together, you could really tell that they thought this out. So, especially considering they are only a few $100s apart in price, this is the far superior piece. So between these two watches, I have to say the Longines is a clear winner. And if I were, considering especially the fact that these two watches are roughly the same in price, the Longines is a couple of $100s more, it's worth the few $100s more. This is a total A grade, top of the line piece, and this is a nice piece, but it's definitely a B celebrity trying to punch above its weight, and which it does to a degree, but the Longines is a far classier act. So let's turn the camera around and close out the episode. That was the comparison. I do believe that the Longines Spirit Zulu Time GMT is the better watch. It's a few hundred more, but it is totally worth it. So thanks for taking the time to watch. I really appreciate it. If you did like it, please subscribe. It really helps.